Hey guys, we are going to make these super cute little clay polar bears for winter time. And let's just kind of look at him. So he's sitting flat, and we are going to be creating his body and his head, and then the arms are going to be leaning forward, and the back legs are just, he's like in a sitting up position. So the bottom is very flat. So he will need some time to dry. Model Magic is super soft. It's not going to stick to your hands at all, but it sticks to itself very easily. It also can stick to paper a little bit. Just make sure that you're protecting your furniture at home with your messy mat. But then I'm also going to show you how to use this, this paper that the Model Magic comes in case you need an extra layer of protection to let this dry. Now I'm noticing too that while it's colder and colder out, Model Magic does not dry as quickly as it does on hotter days. So it could take up to a couple days for this to completely dry. So just know that. I will show you how to finish it with the Sharpie. So you're going to need a Sharpie for all of the black detailing, scissors to open your clay, and then I use like a pencil just to, I'll show you, but it's to kind of just measure that we have kind of a straight edge when we are putting the arms on. So for the Model Magic, I like to use scissors to cut off both ends, just because it's a little bit cleaner, and then I don't rip the bag. And then I can cut straight down the center and get myself a nice little foil and use this for it to dry on, or if you want to put it on your counter or something like that, it just protects it. So this foil would be great to keep all opened up to let it dry. So just know that that's an option if you cut off the ends of it really nicely and then cut it down the center. I'll bring that back out a little bit later. So you're going to have Model Magic that's going to come in this little cube. It's very, very soft. It kind of feels like a cloudy marshmallow. Like I said, it's not going to make your hands dirty or sticky or anything like that. And it might be a little cold. So if you kind of work to warm it up a little bit, we're not going to roll it into a ball though. I know it's super tempting. But what we want to do is we're going to cut it in half. And I just love using scissors with it because then I get a nice clean edge. If I pull it, sometimes it's so soft, it'll be kind of like taffy, and then I'm going to get all of these kind of little stringy things between. So I love cutting Model Magic. I think it's just easier to keep the parts separate. One of them is going to be used for, or one of the halves is going to be used for our legs. We're going to build the front legs and the back legs of the bear, and then the other half is going to be used for the body and the head. So I'm going to put just one half of it away, and on this one, I just kind of want to walk you through how I manipulate it and move it around. Notice that I'm using kind of a pinching motion with one set of fingers, thumb and forefinger, and then on the other, I'm holding it the same way. And I am just kind of at the same pace, doing this pinching motion, and it provides some resistance because you're holding it in one hand, but you're also using pressure on the other hand. So I don't ever push this too hard. I usually use a very light touch, but because I'm working both hands at the same time, it's getting the pressure and the counter pressure. So you can warm it up a little bit. We're not changing the shape, but I want you to just notice by pushing, I can make it long and thin. But I can also, see I'm holding one hand and making it, I'm just holding it firm, but I can also squeeze it back and make it more into a cube just by pressure and counter pressure. All right, now it's kind of more of like a marshmallow shape, right? So just warming it up a little bit. But what I'm going to do now is when I have it kind of like in a little bit of a brick shape, I'm just going to cut off. It's about 1/3 for the head, but I'm going to kind of use a little bit of that in a minute too. So this is going to become the body. So we have it kind of in 1/3 and then the 2/3 here. This is going to be the body. So I'm going to make the torso of the bear, which is what you can see. He's kind of in the sitting up position. So it's going to be this part right here with the chest and the back. Notice that it's flat here. So I'm going to just keep pressing like we were talking about, using my fingers, both hands, kind of making it a tall, make it look kind of like a marshmallow. But rather than keeping it perfectly in a square or a cube, I'm going to taper the top so that the top's a little bit more narrow and the bottom is a little bit wider. So I can also use the table as resistance too, right? And I can push on the sides to kind of bring it up higher. And we don't want his body to be like an overall cube. So if you do slightly, you can slightly roll it in your hands just to kind of get rid of those really, really rough edges. You can kind of, but then you're gonna have to rework it again. You want his body to be soft. I mean, it's a bear, right? He's not a cube. So we're just kind of working the torso, getting rid of some of those harder edges, softening those down, pushing it in. So I'll give you a side view here so you can kind of see. It's a little bit more of an angular. It's not a perfect square like this one, edges and edges. It's kind of going in, not obviously a perfect triangle, but it is triangular because we're going up to shoulders, and then we have the big sides for the legs right here. And then I'm just going to use my fingers to kind of just round out so that it's a little bit softer. So that's going to be his torso right there. All right, so now that we have the torso, we're going to leave this aside because that's going to be for his head. We're going to use this one to make the legs, and we need to get 4 legs out of this. So what I always do if I know I need even numbers is I always cut things in half and then half again. That way I have the same amount to use to make equal size things. So I'll cut it in half because I need back legs and forward legs. So then I'll cut that in half, back legs, and I'll cut that in half, forward legs. Okay, so we're gonna put those there. Now we're gonna start making legs for the back here. So as we see, he's kind of like leaning outwards, right? These back legs, it's kind of like a teddy bear that you put on your bed and he's kind of flopping over a little bit. So with these, I'm just going to make kind of like longer, soften them up a little bit. But to connect it, you're gonna just pinch it right here. So it's kind of like a peak. And then that soft piece right there, that diagonal, is gonna go right into his hip. So that's gonna go right there. We're gonna do the same thing with the other one. We're gonna work it so that it's, we don't want them long and thin, right? And I'll show you how to shorten them up. But remember, we're gonna pinch, right, like that, and then that creates that angle that we can connect. So now we have the back legs on, right? But they're a little bit long and don't really make a lot of sense because they're kind of different lengths too. So what I want you to do is kind of push. You're gonna hold it and you're gonna kind of push it in until you have them about the same size. So remember, this stuff is really, really, really movable. And you just wanna kind of soften it, soften the corners so that it looks more like a leg and not like a rectangle. So you just kind of wanna smooth it out a little bit. And then the paws, you can see that the paws are facing up, right? So we want to push with our thumb kind of on the end just to make that area kind of lifting up a little bit. And I'm going to put my fingers kind of like right there to kind of just roll. So it's kind of like the tips up just a little bit. So now you can kind of see that there's like that little toe area pointing up. Like that. Okay, good. All right, so for the arms, for the front arms, the front legs, we're gonna have them coming straight down. So on this one, again, I'm gonna kind of soften it a little bit, kind of elongate it a little bit, and I'm gonna pinch it. Pinch it back, and that pinch is where that diagonal is where we're gonna connect, right there. We're gonna bring it forward. So just kind of hold it there, then bring it forward here. Same thing, let's just kind of massage it a little bit so it kind of warms up. You can get that pinch happening. Connect it right like that. So you want it reaching forward so it's like he has his paws, instead of exposed, facing down onto the ground. So what you're gonna do with this is you're gonna push down, and then I use my finger to kind of do this so that it looks like the paws, kind of like this wrist joint right here, kind of went like that. So I kind of just push my finger in just a little bit. And then here's where I use the pencil, kind of just pushing up against it, just so that I know they're both about the same size out, just kind of as a guideline. That way I know one arm is not longer than the other. It's kind of a good rule. Just kind of make sure that they're a little bit straighter across. There we go. Okay, so now he's kind of can lean forward a little bit. Good. All right, so now we have this left for the head, and the head will have 3 parts to it. We're gonna also attach kind of the snout and then ears, and then we need just a little tiny bit for his tail. So I'm gonna take off just a little pinch like that. So we wanna leave a little bit so we can make a head, but then this part, we might need to even give some back. So let's make our parts for our head, and then if there's anything left, we'll add it back to what the head will end up being. So I'm gonna take a little pinch off, and this is just a pinch, right? And you're just gonna make kind of like just a little triangle pointy thing, and you're just gonna stick a tail right on the back. Polar bear tails are kind of stubby, so you're just gonna stick it right there. And then on this one, you're gonna also take, I think I have too much, so that's good. I'm gonna take a little bit for the snout, and I'm gonna take a little bit extra for the ears. So that's gonna be for the snout. Might even be too much. So I think a good idea is just to kind of watch me finish some steps, and then you can pause it as many times as you want to rewind. So that's going to be for the snout, and we'll kind of get that going in a minute. This one is going to be for ears, so we need 2 ears, and I'll explain that. This one is going to, okay, so ears, we did the tail. Oh, good. So I can actually add a little bit back to the head, which is good. Can mold that back in. And actually, if you want to keep a little bit out, I'll show you how to make a little fish. You don't have to, you can obviously give him a bigger head, but I'm gonna kind of hold a little extra piece out like that for the fish. So this is gonna be the head, and a polar bear head, it's not too round, it's actually pretty narrow. So I'm gonna make it round to begin with, but then I'm gonna narrow it down and flatten the top. So I want it to be kind of more like a kind of like a heart shape without like the V in the top of the heart. You want it to be kind of a flat top, but then kind of a reverse triangle, not like we did the body. Remember, it tapered in, and we can kind of round this up in a little bit. But we're kind of doing that because we want it to be a little bit more angled on the sides. And then this right here, maybe it's even a little bit much. So if you have a little bit much, give it to your little pile for the fish over here. You want this to be like, you know those little candies, like the little Tic Tac candies that are kind of long like that? You want to have it about like that, and then you're going to just kind of smush it in here. And just remember, press, like we did the legs, we pushed them in. And you want to kind of squeeze it and flatten it. So to flatten it, you just kind of tap the front. Because polar bears, and then I'm using my fingers to kind of scoosh it out so that it's a little bit of a longer face. So now I can kind of just working it so that it's a rounder head, more narrow with the snout. And it starts looking funny, right? Because we don't have eyes on it or anything like that, but it's with the profile, you can just see it's similar. We just need to add a nose and eyes. So you're just making kind of a rounder head with a more narrow jawline, and then polar bears have a pretty long snout. All right, so now we have that basic shape here. And then with the ears, I find an easy way to do that. You don't need much, but you're just gonna roll like a little segment, not too long, because you wanna bend that in half to make a little ear. So it's kind of like a little rainbow and you've curved it over. And then you can just kind of shove that up right on top there. So I'll do it again. Roll, 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 roll. Bend it in half like that. And that just makes a perfect little ear because you have that little indent in there too. And then you just pop that on top. See, so now his ears are kind of coming together. And with Model Magic, I find that just kind of just tapping it a little bit with my finger kind of can bring it forward or push it back. You're going to kind of have to play around with it, you know, figure out where you want it. It sticks pretty well when you put it on there, so just kind of be careful. All right, so he pretty much has all the elements on him now, and now it's just kind of a matter of adding detailing with your Sharpie. So what we're gonna do for his paws is, of course, since we have the top down, we're gonna add 4 nails. And these are big, giant nails that grab fish out of the ocean. The Sharpie works super well if it's wet, but you might also want these to dry. So you can totally let this dry and then draw on your details later. A Crayola marker or a Flair marker, since those are water soluble, they might kind of spread out a little bit because this does have moisture in it. For the pad of his feet, you're gonna draw like an oval and then color it in. And then we're gonna give 3 little kind of like toes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I find that it's easier rather than drawing a circle. Like, yeah, the oval was big enough, we could draw the shape and then color it in. But for this, I just press, press, press. It's way easier and cleaner. And notice that I'm holding it very carefully between my fingers here so that I can have the pressure. It's delicate work getting this on, but Sharpie works really well on Model Magic. So we have an oval for kind of the pad of his foot, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So then we have the big feet facing us. And then for the face, I kind of just push a circle in for the ear, just tap it in there. You might need to tap a couple times, but don't overdo it. And then of course for the eyes. And then the nose, I just try to do a little, just a mini upside down triangle. It's the most natural looking nose you can do. Like that. Oh, so cute. I have a little family here now. So cute. All right, so the fish. If you have enough left over, one of my samples the other day, I had none left over, so I realized, and then I did it again just to test it out, and I had some left over. So I don't know. I mean, you may or you may not, but if you have a little bit, like when we were making the head, you could even maybe take some from the leg section and just hold it aside. But the fish is pretty straightforward. It's just a little tiny piece. I'm gonna kind of roll it into like that little Tic Tac candy shape we had for the snout. So it's kind of like a little oval. And then I'm just gonna I'm gonna secure it with my fingers and just kind of flatten it. And I'm going to pinch the nose part to make it kind of like a, you know, salmons kind of have that beak on it. And then here's where the pencil comes in handy. So I hold it into the back and I just kind of press it to get that kind of curve in there. So using a little bit of a tool, you could use something else too, but you want to kind of pinch and press. Working with clay is just all about the resistance. So learning where to hold, where to tap, you kind of have to work it because sometimes they might not look right away. You just kind of have to play with it. So I know in general, I need 2 back fins. I decided not to get too fancy. I just wanted a generic outline of a fish and then draw on the gills. And also, since this is a polar bear, I kind of wanted to look pretty primitive and simplistic. So I just kind of made a general outline of a fish with a tail, and then I did an eye, and then I just did 3 gills. And it's pretty clear what it is. especially when you have kind of like that pointy front end to it. And because of all just the very simplistic lines of the bear's paws and claws and all that, it works in the scene as well. Another thing you could do to kind of create more to this scape is, you know, take a piece of white paper. You could color like a watering hole, or if you have blue construction paper, you could cut some circles to make it look like, you know, that there's a break in the ice where the bear could wait for a seal to pop up, or he could jump down and go under the ice and go for a swim. But I kind of like him on this blue paper. And I know it's easier for you to see as well on the camera. But anyway, he's kind of cute. We have a little winter bear there. And the bottom is very flat. And like I said, it'll probably take a couple days for him to dry. But use this if you need to keep your desk at home safe. Or make sure he's on some other kind of paper so that he's not drying on any wood, because that would, the moisture, there's a little bit of moisture in this clay, and I don't want it to go on any of your furniture at home. So just be mindful of that. Use your foil, and for sure have a messy mat while you work, just so that you keep your area nice and clean. So I hope you guys had fun. I would love to see it if you wanted to post any of these up. Just a fun little relaxing winter project. And I hope you also watch some of those videos of the baby polar bears running around with their mom. It's so cute. Anyway, have fun, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.